The next panel is, as I said, on payments. And may I invite the moderator, Pankul, to actually take over the dais.
Morning, everyone. So as Ram said, we have set the context for the rest of the day today with the previous panel on digital, with the previous panel on the digital ecosystem. With that, we move to our next panel, which is charting the future of retail and wholesale payments. With this, I will invite my first panelist on stage, who is the Group Head of Operations for Bank ABC and Bank ILA, Paul Baker. Paul, please welcome to the stage. So with 35 years of expertise into banking, payments, and operations, we have the first panelist and an expert on the stage. So don't start guessing his age. He started early as a teenager into banking. So I'll invite my next panelist. She's the EVP for payments at Benefit Company. Shafaq Alkooheji, please welcome on stage. So Shafaq carries a lot of experience into banking, fintech, payments. With this, I'll invite my next panelist. Now, we talked about a lot about the fintechs in the last panel, whether the fintechs are good or bad. So we'll give an opportunity to another fintech to come on stage and prove otherwise. With this, I'll welcome Group EVP, Business, Tap Payments, Ahmed Alaradi on stage, please. So Ahmed is the man after leading payments fintech in Middle East and Africa region. This is one of the fastest growing fintech for last couple of years. So with this, I welcome all the panelists. So we'll start our discussion. First is on the landscape of Bahrain over the last couple of years. And with the banking as the core for customers, and even all the customers, they start their journey with the bank as a face. So my first question, Paul, would be to you on how do you see what are the most pressing challenges for the retail payments in Bahrain, and what are the ways you as Bank ABC and Bank ILA, you overcome them?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me again this year. When you posed that you were going to ask this question to me the other day, what I wrote on this piece of paper is completely different how I'm going to answer it after listening to the first hour today. I think we talk about the customer, and the best way I can relate to the customer is what happens in the Baker household at home. We are customers as a family, and that relates directly to my job as a banker. There are a number of things that we are very lucky about here in Bahrain. We're a young country. We have a young infrastructure. We have a very modern payments infrastructure, with a very supportive regulator and a very forward-thinking switch. We've got great services like Bahrain Plus, like Bawatia, and that's dovetailed with all of the card services that we've traditionally had. If I think personally at the moment, when I was thinking about what are the challenges that I, as head of the household, have, is that 1,000 BD limit on Bahrain Plus a day. Can we inch that up? That's a challenge that I have as the leader of the household. I'll tell you another big challenge in the Baker household is the other week when the school decided that phones were banned during the day, and they've got to go to the canteen. And they said, Dad, I'm going to need a card because I can't use the Apple Pay on my phone to go and pay for my lunch. That's a challenge in the Baker household. But I think, you know, some of the bigger things that are linked to that is when I look inside the inside of this jacket, and I find that I don't have a traditional wallet in my jacket. I've got a wallet on my phone. But let's think about because I've got this virtual wallet, what if that virtual wallet isn't there? Because I haven't got a traditional wallet in my pocket. And one thing that we probably haven't touched a lot about today yet is operational resilience. And the fact that we've got things like, we talk about cybersecurity, but we're completely now reliant, or the younger generation are completely reliant on their phone, on their digital payments. And we hear about challenges around cybersecurity. We had CrowdStrike the other week. Luckily, it didn't affect too much in this region, but it did a lot in the US. We also have many other challenges through telecom providers. We've got a very robust last mile here, but cables were churned up in the sea not so long ago, and that creates operational resilience issues. And the challenges that we have as banks and the national infrastructure to serve our customers is very much now around making sure that we've got lots of redundancy in our system, and this is what keeps me awake at night. So going back to the service that we give to our customers is we have to be 24/7. We have to be completing our payments within 15 seconds. And these are the things which the banks are working on to ensure that our customers are permanently online. And these are the things which we're going to have to work on consistently over the coming years.
Thank you, Paul. Interesting. You touched upon quite critical areas in terms of instant payments, infra as a backbone, and other challenges. With this, Shafaq, a lot of challenges must also be being passed on to you as a benefit payment ecosystem provider and as a services provider to Bank ABC and Bank ILA. So according to you, how do you see the Bahrain's infrastructure being involved to address the needs for growing financial inclusion and innovation around payments?
Well, first of all, thank you for... Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, thank you for having me on this panel. It's a pleasure meeting you all guys. I hope that I add value in the conversation. Well, you mentioned a very important point when it comes to financial inclusion. Luckily in Bahrain, we are advanced in financial inclusion when it comes to retail. Obviously, as an infrastructure, benefits plays a vital role in enabling retail inclusion. And there are 4 main products that Benefit are offering, which has assisted and aided banks and fintechs and PSPs in onboarding that journey. It's obviously the eKYC WhatsApp gateway that we have for digital onboarding, the instant payment Fawri Plus infrastructure, WPS as a system of the LMRA, along with Benefit Pay, which is the default mobile app for the country. But another challenge we're facing when it comes to inclusion is that we're only focusing on our day-to-day interaction as individuals. But we forget that there is a very large segment within the market, the micro and the SME in particular, which today have very limited access to digital services, whether it is lending, whether it is even basic account services such as account opening, account receivables, cash flow services. And we believe that the challenges that we are facing today, we could play a vital role again. And actually, as we speak, we are working on enhancing our infrastructure to support the inclusion of corporates in particular. And when I say corporates, I'm focusing on the underserved, which is the micro and the SME intact. Obviously, a lot within the SME and the micro market, the micro businesses, a lot is within sales on credit. So sales on credit is very much heavy within the supply chain in Bahrain. And we believe that we need to enhance our Fawatir infrastructure to support such kind of business use cases, provide smooth and easy, let's say, if I may say, obviously, financing, not finance, but guaranteed transactions and guaranteed payments. That's one aspect. Obviously, checks is a very important as well infrastructure that is very much reliant when it comes to the micro industry, the micro businesses, and having the e-check product, we believe it should have helped, but unfortunately the pickup from the market on the e-check is very low, which means that the value proposition of the e-check needs to be revised. Another important factor is the Fawri Plus and Benefit Pay contribution. Post the pandemic, we are all aware that majority of the transactions that are happening on Fawri Plus are not necessarily only individual and peer-to-peer transaction. But today, Fawri Plus is peer-to-peer platform. So we are working on enhancing a Tijari scheme for Fawri Plus and Fawri, which is a corporate dedicated payment. And that will play a major role in transforming the banking services and the transactional banking in Bahrain, we believe. Today, around 7 billion BD is being exchanged in Fawri Plus. A big chunk of that 7 billion is SME corporate transactions. And that's a very important indicator, GDP indicator of the SME market. We could enhance the GDP, let's say, contribution of the micro and SME by just simply segregating Fawri Plus P2P from Fawri Plus Tijari. Along, obviously, with the fact that we're going to enrich the payment data of Fawri Plus Tijari, because Tijari today is going to embed within the payment trailway a lot of information that will help and aid in, let's say, fostering rooms and enabling technologies and financial institutions to build on open banking and open finance, along as well with providing advanced cash flow services and account receivables and management for SME. And not only that, but also sophisticated transactional banking services for large enterprises as well. So the more we enrich the payment data, the more innovation we're going to drive within the corporate transactions, the corporate payments in particular.
Thank you, Shafaq. I think you have given a lot of hints to the fintechs in the room, especially to Ahmed. What are the pain points where he can pitch in for his fintech? With this, Ahmed, I'll come to you. As Shafaq has pointed out, there are certain sectors still to be addressed, such as micro, SME, which banks, the big banks, are relatively slow or they're moving at their own pace, where fintech has a huge opportunity to step in. Now, with your experience, how do you see fintechs can play a role in building and providing an infrastructure around integration, around innovation, on all of these areas which can be addressed and which are like a pain points for some of the payments ecosystem providers or the banks like Bank ABC or Bank Ila. So what's your view on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I think the fintechs have a very interesting role in the picture. You mentioned a very good point that banks have been historically slow on focusing on the SMEs, as an example. And it makes sense. Obviously, there has always to be prioritization, and it's a global issue that we have seen. That left a gap for fintechs not to come and replace banks, right? As Rashid mentioned in the previous panel, banks will always be there, and banks are the backbone of the fintech industry. So the role of fintechs comes in to bridge those gaps for both the banks and the SMEs. I'll give a good example here, right? The launch of Apple Pay 3 or 4 years ago. That was a service which had high demand, right? Everybody was anticipating the launch of Apple Pay. And in the preparations of the launch, we noticed, we were invited, obviously, with the different stakeholders to be part of the initial launch. And the first takeaway that I took out of the meeting was, who's representing SMEs here, right? The conversation was all about how do we get the telcos online, how do we get the big food aggregators, but nobody had a plan, at least for the first day or for the 0 hour, as they call it, to launch the SMEs, right? And that became an opportunity, obviously, for us as a fintech, which started by focusing on SMEs. We obviously expanded now to serve all types of merchants, but we brought it in a speedy manner where there was a launch at 12 a.m. I don't recall the date. 12:01, we had 3,000 merchants online, right? Why did we do that? Because we obviously had the focus, not because we have reinvented anything or all of that, but the focus went to the bigger players. So this is a big role, right? Speed is a key aspect of what fintechs bring to the market, right? Any innovation that is new, fintechs, because of the focus, will bring it very quickly to the market. Second, obviously, is the focus and innovation, right? Usually, fintechs would have 1 or 2 products. In very rare scenarios, you would see more than that. So the wonderful minds of the youth and the different teams of those fintechs would be really focused on how to enhance and innovate within a specific area, right? And the decision-making all across the company will be around one topic at a time. So you would see things taken from the conventional financial industry, repackaged in a way which makes more sense to the time that we are in, right? It could be the speed of the service, it could be even the channel, right? Because sometimes, with some, we see today as an example in the lending industry. Do banks offer loans to SMEs? Yes. But are banks available in the channels that those SMEs are in? Maybe no. Right? And that's where some fintechs come in to play in the middle. You're a bank, you want to give loans. I am integrated to all of the ERPs that those SMEs are using. Let me just offer your loans over there. Right? And third thing, I think, is the international experience that fintechs are bringing into the market. Because typically the fintechs are 2 types, right? One is a regional fintech that is expanding to a market like Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, such as TAP as an example. We started in Kuwait and today we expanded. So we come and we bring our experiences from the other markets, or even the other type, which is usually a 25-year-old who was inspired by an idea in Australia or the United States, right? Maybe he doesn't come with the exact experience, but he came with the idea to the market. If it succeeds, others will follow, and that has a positive impact even on the larger financial institutions like banks or big lending houses and all of that.
So fintechs are smart, fintechs are agile. Again, some of the quotes from the previous panel. So a couple of points what you're raising, especially on the SME sector, which is untapped as of now, giving to loans in terms of speed, innovation. With this, Paul will like to take your views on that. How do you see, especially these sectors on the retail, SME, on the banking side, how are these being tackled in terms of speed and innovation when it comes to the retail payment industry?
Yes, speed and innovation, and how we can meet the growing customer expectations. And it's interesting you started to talk about international, and one of the areas I wanted to start on was international. During Monday to Thursday, after about 9 a.m. Bahrain time till the evening, I have a fantastic experience on international payments. I do a payment from my app, and it will get to my bank account in the UK because I've got a mortgage to pay over there within about 10 minutes. Fantastic. But talking about speed, if I want to do a payment outside any of those times, it will take 1-2 days, and there's a lot that we can do to tackle that. And I think that is where things around growing instant payments, not just within the domestic market, but going into the region. Hopefully in time we'll have instant payments globally, but let's start and see if we can get instant payments regionally. I talk about I'm the customer. I travel to the UAE a lot, and I load up with cash. I make sure that I've got my credit card with me. But if we had a Fowry Plus to cover that, or a similar scheme, and I know that there is work being done in the background on it, that would be a great way forward. I think Cheaton, he's gone. He was there, but he's walked off. He was talking about collaboration. And I believe that there is still a huge amount of opportunity, and we talked about it earlier, that between the fintechs, the banks, the PSPs, and the merchants, there is so much scope for collaboration, linking apps. I went and bought some petrol yesterday morning, and the Sedim function, so easy. Oh, I need to top it up. As he was filling up, I tapped on the button, I topped up. He finished, I paid. It was easy. I didn't have to get my wallet out. It was all on the phone, and I checked a couple of emails at the same time. So this is the type of collaboration that I think we need to really work on between the banks, the fintechs. I don't know if there are any merchants out here. And we work all together really to make that experience, because at the end of the day, I'm lazy. I like the fact that I just have my phone. I can tap on a few things and make things happen. And I believe that there is opportunities around cross-selling and things like that, that if they all work together in that ecosystem, we can make a big difference together.
So currently, with this thought, Paul, currently do you see, or as a bank, do you have any special ask from a fintech, from SME point of view, what they should do to tap this sector and help banks, especially on the SME side?
Bank ABC here doesn't tap into the SME market, so it's perhaps I'm not the best one to answer that, but I think what I'm seeing around the globe, that there are very innovative methods of making digital settlements for SMEs, where they don't have to have a heavy amount of IT kit. You can accept card payments just on the tap of a phone these days, rather than having the old-fashioned POS machines that we still see. So all of that, just making it easier for the SMEs as we move away from cash. And I think if the fintechs can work with those SMEs, that will really help.
Thank you, Paul. With this, I'll move to Shafaq. A lot of speed and innovation, what Paul talked about, what Ahmed talked about, it can't be completed these days without AI and machine learning. And Benefit being like an innovator in these fields, especially on the payment side. What's your thought on how AI and machine learning can help to bring changes into the payment landscape?
First of all, as an EFTS infrastructure, EFTS is the infrastructure which Fawri Plus and Fawri and Fawatir runs over. We are completely ISO 222 based. Unfortunately, our interfaces with our members, whether it's banks or billers, merchants, and payment service providers as well, today is purely empty and base messages. So the migration, we've already kicked off a migration project of the industry from an MT to an MX-based message format. We gave them 18 months to complete that. So I hope that my dear banks are very well advanced in their integration towards the MX messages. And the reason why I'm focusing on the ISO migration of the banks and the members is because, as I mentioned earlier, we're enriching Fawatir to include more value propositions and payment or information within the payment itself. We're also working on Tijari, which is meant to segregate P2P from corporate transactions and instant payments, and that will help as well enrich the data. So we as Benefit understand that if as a Bahrain industry, financial industry, we want to really invest in AI, in data and machine learning, I as an infrastructure, I have to enhance and elevate my payment railways to have abundance of data that will help any fintech or open banking or any other, like any use case actually to be built on that data. So that's one very important aspect. So I look at it from two angles, an angle where what are we doing to enable and empower others to use our payment railways for AI, and how are we as well looking into AI for our local or for our internal product development. A lot of the instant payment over the globe are tapping into or having some kind of a central fraud detection module within their internal system, especially with the social engineering and the mobile app and the obviously a lot of people were aware that Benefit Pay have just recently introduced IDMV services to try to stop the social engineering and the fraudulent people from hacking or taking the device of the customer. But not only that, what we're trying to do as well is through the AI use of AI within the instant payment is to try to build predictive understanding of the customer behavior and transactional, let's say, patterns for us to be able to detect in advance a fraudulent transaction. That's something at a very early stages. We're exploring, and we haven't yet discussed it with the banks because it's in our R&D lab. So some of you might be a bit surprised to hear that from Benefit. Another thing we're working on when it comes to data AI as well is the fact that we are very much actively seeking to go cross-border. As Bahrain, alhamdulillah, we have a very advanced instant payment system. And when you go look at the international trends, now it's cross-border. So we've signed a deal with MPCI, which is UPI in India. We've tried to knock doors with Saudi payments, but there was a decision to go at the GCC level. Luckily, the GCC committee have approved to start exploring instant payment interoperability, but that is a political decision that's yet still at the very early stages. We're also actively seeking to join Project Nexus under the Bank of International Settlement, which is a multilateral it started as an Asian country interoperability, and now it's growing to include other jurisdictions. And within the cross-border challenges is AML and fraud and AML and CFT monitoring and screening. And we have been very much blessed to be discussing with BIS, the Bank of International Settlement again, Project Mandela, which is some kind of a platform that tries to have AI-enabled and usage of let's say, AML name screening across the globe to foster and to streamline cross-border transactions. So we're trying to see how can we play a role and how could we add in the R&D and the testing of those concepts from a cross-border perspective. And the last area where we're using AI as benefit is actually back again to the payment ecosystem and railway. Why are we stressing on enriching the payment data and enhancing the payment data? Is because when it comes to credit scoring of SMEs and businesses today and macro businesses, it's very much based on, let's say, audited financial statement or an existing financing service that the company have. But with payments, by having clear and easily detectable and traceable and measured account receivables, account payables of all the SMEs, and we could provide alternative sources for credit scoring for SMEs in particular. And that's something that we hold very dear to our heart as benefit, is the enablement and the empowerment of the SME market.
Very interesting, Shafaq. Good to know a lot is happening in the lab, especially a lot of R&D on AI and machine learning. I mean, I'll ask a question. I mean, you may refuse to answer it as well. Are you engaging a lot of fintechs doing your R&D into AI and machine learning?
Yes, through Bahrain Fintech Bay.
As
you're aware,
nice.
Benefit owns Bahrain Fintech Bay, and through Bahrain Fintech Bay is where we're extending our support as an infrastructure to the fintechs. Maybe not direct to Benefit, but our Bahrain Fintech Bay is playing a major role in enabling them.
Very interesting. Thank you. With this, I move Ahmed to you. Let's talk about Ahmed on the digital wallet. And Bahrain was the first one to roll out the digital wallet, especially in the region. Now, looking at it today, digital wallets and any other alternate modes of payment, how do you see these creating an impact or an influence onto the consumer payments industry?
That's an interesting point. Digital wallets and alternative payment methods, I think, without being part of the industry or looking at myself as an expert, if we look at ourselves as just normal humans every day, right? Payments is one of the most things that we do on a daily basis, right? You buy lunch, you pay bills, you pay tuition fees, and all of that. So whatever really happens in payments would probably have a very big impact on people as human beings and the rest of the aspects of their lives. And yes, it started with digital wallets. Digital wallets gave consumers more visibility on their spending. It made it much easier compared to before the era of previous digital wallets, to the extent where today we are paying in 2 clicks and a Face ID, right? With the mobile wallets and all of that. Now, if you go to the market, if you go to different people where people are just talking, and you ask, what are you expecting next? You'd see very interesting requirements, right? And I had a friend a couple of months ago, we were talking about payments and all of that, and he said, well, today I need to double click and Face ID. Why should I double click? You get my point? This is the fine details of how people are looking at it. And it extends to other aspects of their life, right? Because today, if through Benefit Pay, as an example, I can send my money and the merchant receives it instantly, why does it take a day to get the product, right? So you see people asking for faster. We noticed that also on the merchant side, right? With the introduction of the different digital wallets and businesses realizing that, oh, at least from a payments perspective, there is an opportunity to consolidate the view of my sales in different channels into a single screen, right? Now, is there a possibility to see the same data on my ERP, right? Why should I log into your screen? Right? And then it extends from there. When that same person is negotiating with a logistics provider, right? Why should I log into your app? I want to see my data on my screen. And it goes all across, right? So there's, I think, wallets, alternative payment methods, payments in general is playing a big role in changing the mindset of people simply because they use it a lot, right? Now, it also has different impacts, right? With the data that is exposed there. There are some negative and there are some positive impacts. Positive impacts like with the open banking APIs now, with the different data on spending and all of that, financial institutions started promoting investment, right? So there is an investment mindset slowly growing along the market, right? If I have 10,000 BD in my account, right? Should I just leave it there or should I put it in a treasury bill, as an example, which we've seen with ELA? Or should I put it in a fixed? Or should I even get into stocks, crypto investments and all of that? There's another negative side with the large number of digital wallets that we see because of competition, obviously. We're seeing a growing mindset of people using the service for the sake of discounts. Because up to date, that's the main form of competition between the different payment methods that we see. I think it's a temporary period. It will disappear eventually. The crazy discounts will not continue. But the overall impact is very positive. It changes a lot of behavior, and it has impact everywhere.
Think about it, that why we need to do a double click for Face ID. I mean, it's a thought for everyone. There may be a lot of other areas where this can be innovated. With this, I'll open to audience for any questions. We have time to take a couple of questions. By the time audience come up with the questions, I have questions from a future point of view. Assume we are into 2030, and it's a common question to all the panelists. Let's assume we are into 2030. What should we expect as an innovation in a payment industry by 2030? And with this, Shafaq, I'd like to start with you first.
Well, actually, 2030 is only 5 years from now, so that's not a very long term. So most of the banks and corporates, including Benefit, we're working on our next corporate strategy, which I think that by then, what we're trying to do is we're trying to mimic, there are two angles of it. We're trying to mimic the advancement that we've enabled as Benefit infrastructure. And when I say we enabled, because it's not a Benefit success, it's an industry success. Without my industry, I wouldn't have been able to transform the market in such a way, is mimic that success and that advancement into the, again, I'm gonna go back again to the micro and SME, because that's where the challenges are. And I think that if we're able to enable and to help and to assist and aid the banks and fintechs, obviously, and payment service providers as well, not to discount any member or any player in the industry, there are three challenges when it comes to why are the micro and SME markets underserved today. Whether it's from opening a bank account, whether it is from the fact of having basic account cash management services or access to finances. One of the biggest challenges, obviously, which we solved with MOIC. Previously, the regulation in Bahrain doesn't enforce a CR of an individual establishment to open a bank account. But with the Tijari product, what we've done is that in the CAS project with the banks, and luckily NBR and MOIC were very supportive, and now there's a regulation issued by His Excellency Minister saying that every single CR should have a bank account, and no transaction or no money sales from a commercial activity shall be credited into a personal account. That's a very important milestone that Bahrain has accomplished, because previously an individual establishment used to get the cash inflows into his personal account, so it's a salary, family support, along with the commercial activities that are all mingled into one single account. Another important challenge that we still have to tackle to enable innovation within that area is the digital onboarding of CRs. As an AKYC, we've been able to really help banks in digital onboarding retails. It's straightforward. When it comes to corporate, it's a bit of a challenge, and that's where we need to really focus when it comes to, if you want to drive innovation in SME inclusion and micro business inclusion. Another area as well that I think that we need to shed light on is if I may say, having a digital platform. Benefit Pay today as an app has made life of retail customers and individuals so easy to transact with, but not extending that same user experience, that access to a digital platform that's easy to use and convenient and available and reliable within the SME and micro business markets, and that's where we need to also focus on. And lastly, the most important challenge from payment perspective is debit authorization. There's a big challenge when it comes to authenticating a CR and authorizing debits. And that's why no matter how hard we try to digitalize the journey, we still go back to a manual, physical, wet ink signature when it comes to debit authorization. So those three areas, if we're able to, as an industry, overcome and benefit an infrastructure to support, I believe innovation from the SME market would definitely boom.
Ahmed, what's your view? You should not again copy the thoughts from what Shafaq just stated, but what's your thought by 2030? What changes in payments industry?
I think I would summarize it into 2 points. We do expect that account-to-account direct payments through the open banking rails would grab a larger market share as soon, and the more we approach to the 2030. It's a very interesting concept. It's fast, it's cheap, and the industry requires more maturity, but there's a lot of work in terms of regulation, the infrastructure, and the fintechs or the banks offering such services, which we do think will have a higher share by 2030. Another thing which usually nobody agrees with me on, by the way, but I do think biometric payments will show up into our markets much faster in the upcoming 2 or 3 years. When I say biometric, I'm not referring to fingerprint, maybe because COVID killed that concept, but other biometrics like face recognition or even voice recognition. A few weeks ago, I visited the UAE, and there was a project where Smile to Pay payments were there, right? And in Abu Dhabi, and the experience was much better than I expected, right? I saw it a couple of years back in China, but it was not that good. 2 years later, it's actually easy to pay. Maybe it was a hard onboarding process, but it's possible. Second thing is the innovations of the voice recognition. That's also something that is happening to automate payments through Siri on Apple or Alexa on Amazon, where you can authorize a payment through your voice print or whatever they call it. Those 2 things we started looking at, because at least as TAP, we do think that both will have a bigger potential as we know.
Paul, coming to you, and what's your thought as a banker? What changes by 2030?
I'm probably going to go back to what Shafaq talked about earlier, but there are 3 things that slow down payments: data, compliance, and liquidity. I may not be able to solve the last one, but we'll go back to data. Shafaq mentioned the ISO 20022, and it doesn't matter whether it's the ISO or whatever it is, but what we're getting to is more structured data and formats across the industry. That can only be good, because when we want collaboration, that's exactly what we need. Everybody understanding what the structure of the data is. And linked to data is something we touched on earlier, AI. So AI and compliance, again, you talked about it. Sanction screening for cross-border payments slows down so much the experience of the customer. And AI can play a huge role in reducing all of those false positives that my operations teams have to work through every day to make that payment go. And by the way, it's not just my bank, because if I use a correspondent bank, their team is doing it. And then the receiving bank will do it all again. So 3 to 4 banks will be doing the same job on the same payment, on those same false positives. So AI, I think, has a huge job to play there, but link back to that structured data. If you can get the structured data right, the AI will work better. And it doesn't matter whether we're using NFCs, biometrics, blockchain, crypto. The channel or the wallet doesn't matter. The data is crucial. And I'll end up on that.
Thank you, Paul. I think you set the context for our next discussion, which is on AI. Since we are already short on time, we'll just wind up the discussion for now. And thank you so much, all of you, for being with us, sharing your thoughts. Interesting discussion.